Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to me trying to read every single lost episode creepypasta that I can get my hands on. Today, we'll be reading Akuryō Bubbles. Now, I do recall watching the Powerpuff Girls when I was younger, and I'm hoping that this one is a pretty good one, but I know it's a pretty long one. So, I think we should all strap in and get started on it. Akuryō Bubbles. Every parent wants the best for their child. My daughter Lily was a fan of a Cartoon Network show called The Powerpuff Girls. I remember a smile used to curl on my face as I watched her play. How she used to dart around her room, arms stretched out, mimicking the sound of rushing wind. I was aware of how violent the show was, but I knew my darling was smart and knew not to take such a show so seriously into course of her own actions. Again, I was a parent, and I had to make sure she was looking up to the right people, or things for that matter. It was in 2001, and her birthday wasn't too far off. And I really wanted to give her something she couldn't ever forget. A real treasure. Something she wouldn't expect. So, I took my curiosity of the show off to Amazon.com and eBay. The search results appeared promising. There was a trove of children's treasures, but most of the products looked like valued collectibles or were plushies. Honestly, she's got enough of those things. When I happened across an image of a DVD case, the casing had this groovy lava lamp effect in black and blue, with half of Bubbles' head peeking up from the bottom of the case with her eyes staring out. At the top, the traditional Powerpuff Girls logo in pink and black swerving bold lettering. It even looks like the box art for a Powerpuff Girl blossom-themed lava lamp. The most weirdest thing is the Japanese text that I just could not read. Akuryō. I translated it and it said, evil spirit, but I was also curious. And because it was Japanese, it was to be shipped from Japan, meaning it would take a while for postage. So, I emailed the person selling it who replied, there's just nothing like it, with no signature. Only selling it for a $10 overall, including the shipping, I took the chance to buy it. But I was wise to check the thing before giving it to my Lily. After all, I only want the best for her. When it arrived, I hid the package in the living room until late at night. When my girl had fallen asleep, I took myself down to the living room, made myself some tea, opened my laptop, and removed the packaging. Just as it appeared on the eBay page, with no details, just the imagery. Not even a barcode or a hint of credit. The covering was a shiny plastic, and as I opened it, I saw a DVD with the same imagery description of Bubbles' half head peeking out from the bottom, and the drawing of Bubbles and the Powerpuff Girls logo were soft, and the DVD was shaped like an oval. What threw me off guard more than anything was the DVD's rating symbol. For some strange reason, although I had received it from Japan, it had a BBFC rating of an 18. An 18? Well, no way am I showing this thing to my Lily. I checked back on the account on eBay, but the seller's account had been removed. Gone. I was stuck with this thing. Damn it. Regarding my own thoughts of the show, I felt it was my obligation to judge this thing for myself. How was I supposed to get rid of it without knowing anything about it? Well, the seller did. It was just because of my raging curiosity. Should have just bought her a plushie. I was still puzzled by how I was managed to be given what appeared a Japanese title from Japan but was manufactured in the UK. If they rated the DVD, surely there would be more copies available around, wouldn't there? I concluded my own pondering, assuming it was a unique product, that there was only this single copy and was perhaps posted to Japan as some form of special gift to whoever, the seller himself maybe. I put the disc into my laptop. I plugged in the headphones and watched as it set itself up. On the title screen, I chose Part 2, came up with a blank start screen, just black and the white lettering. Akuryō Bubbles Part 2. The screen suddenly flashed white, just a second's worth of frame, making me a little uneasy. I swore I'd seen something in that single white frame, but it kinda looked like what Lily had seen in an episode the other day, where Bubbles was surrounding her sister Blossom with, as I like to say, is double team. I don't know what the episode was about, but it kinda gave me the creeps. Perhaps an error of some kind. No introduction like any of the regular episodes had. It started with the professor, can't quite remember his name, Utonium or something, staring out at the night sky in his front yard. I noticed how it was just dead silent. I checked my volume, but it was a considerable level. I wasn't having any desire to have it any higher. He looked utterly withdrawn from his surroundings as he stared up at the moon just hanging there. He then proceeded to walk into the house and he sat himself down in a chair in front of a fire. Everything about him was just pitch black, focusing in on him. Something subliminal, like a glitch, a frame flickered of an image of Bubbles. She looked enraged, dark red surrounding her pupils, how the gray figure slowly approached the camera with those sickly red eyes. It was just like that. Back at the screen, Professor appeared distraught as the camera lifted from behind the flicker of the fire to see him, alone in the dark in his chair. The animation looked somewhat spectacular, how it focused in on his heavy breathing. The color tone on his face was almost real. I could see the flickering of the lights and the wave of shadow reach around and about his face. He was leaning forward, hugging himself, looking scared out of his mind. His breathing was all I could hear in the headphones. What was going on? I felt startled at the loud creak in the living room, of the door slowly opening by my side. I hoped it not to be Lily, for the fear of spoiling this for her, but that was why I was watching this, to begin with, if it was suitable. With the way the atmosphere was now, I had no wish to hand this to her at all. I felt the draft and relaxed a little, cursing under my breath. Why had I gone and shut off the lights? I was kind of afraid to move. I resumed watching, and Utonium turned to look up at the stairs, gasping, hearing the creak of the door to the girls' bedroom. Seeing the similarity of what just happened, I attempted to laugh a little. To calm myself, I realized. I reached out and pushed the door shut, picked up my tea to drink, when I noticed it had gone stone cold so quickly. Looking back at the screen, Utonium's eyes were bulging, reddening at the sides, his pupils large, swallowing the whites. I felt I started to understand why the DVD wasn't released for more copies. It may have been an experiment of an episode not aired. Maybe it was a side project or was marketed to older fans. That perhaps made sense, but this was a show designed for young girls. The professor had risen from his seat and ever so slowly started to make his way to the stairs. The angle was shot over his shoulder, so you felt you were walking with him. The stairs seemed so distant, like miles away. Every step he took, the stairs seemed to draw away from him, reeling back into the dark. A faint figure shot across the screen in front of him, and he froze. So did I. He spun around to face the camera, looking side to side, dripping with sweat. A bubbly giggle echoed faintly, and then disappeared. Reluctantly, he made his way up the stairs. As he reached the top, he went to grab the handle of the girls' room. They noticed something from across the hallway. At the end, lurking, there was a short, pitch-black form, standing and facing him. A number of seconds passed by uneasily, until it appeared to move forward, gliding in the dark. The professor's breathing was picking up again on my headphones, and I scratched the sides of my face a little watching. What was this? What the fuck was this? A bold warmth clutched at my shoulder, and I felt someone's breath on my ear. The words "asobu" muttering softly from a pair of lips. I yelled, swiping out blindly at the dark and switching the light on to find nothing. Absolutely nothing. I realized how loud I was and felt tempted to check upstairs for Lily in case I had woken her. I pressed stop and listened out for her. Not a single sound. I felt the need to turn the DVD off, but I felt hooked. Perhaps this was a version intended for adults. If so, maybe one day when Lily's old enough. No, what are you saying? You can't give this to your daughter. I pressed play and found that the dark figure was only standing inches away from Utonium. It looked up at him with a round gray face and no eyes. It stretched open its mouth slowly with a loud inhale. As it did so, its high pitch descended into a long, deep drone, reaching a pitch I don't think can ever be attainable by any voice or instrument. The screen warped and twisted into itself slowly as it reversed its pitch to being suddenly high like a siren. White noise sounded for a brief moment, and then the figure flickered out of vision. Resorting to the standard fixed format again, Utonium looked around him, panicked to see if it moved. Where had it gone? Had reality slipped from him? Was he imagining it? Was I imagining it? He turned to face the camera, and the screen shot to a close-up of the creature's face screeching loudly. Jumping, I turned down the volume, completely shaken. There was another single frame that flashed for a second. I rewound the DVD and stopped it. It was of her sisters, standing side by side, all in gray, and their bedclothes torn as if they were rotting or decaying. Smiles carved edgily into their faces. Utonium burst into the girls' room to find the two were sleeping soundly and safely. Buttercup, Blossom, but no Bubbles. Something he'd grown used to now. He got on his knees as he reached the side of the bed, watching them sleep. He smiled, stroking Buttercup's hair. Back on his feet, he looked at the end of the bed by the windows, where the blonde darling should have laid rest. A stark white form rose slowly from the end, darkened eyes and torn mouth, screaming. The screen went to black abruptly, cutting out the sound, and the credits came on. It was finished. I sat in astonished silence for a second before I had ejected it. I just didn't know what to do. What could I do with it? There was still another episode to watch. No chances. I didn't want to take chances of an innocent person stumbling across this. I played the episode part 1. Shivering at the stare Bubbles gave my on the cover of the case, and I threw the case. This one did start out as usual. The Japanese Powerpuff Girls theme played, and I felt my heart calm itself a little. There was the title announced, Akuryō, Bubbles Part 1, but no credits. Then another black screen card appeared with Japanese lettering, Asobu, and then bracketing, Play. Loud static and a collection of echoes, sounding industrial, as if recorded in a factory, emerged before the screen went dark again. Utonium was in his lab. It looked as though he was planning another concoction. This is taking quite a while. I knew it was a long one, but damn. The girls emerged from behind him and watched him as he took the Chemical X and poured the entire contents into the mix, a stern, determined look appearing on his face. The girls, frightened, kept distance as the pot rumbled and smoke rose from the mixture. Utonium stood back, disconcerted, before Bubbles flew over to the dully colored collaboration of gunk in the pot. The smoke, in a swirly, curling motion, swept across her face and evaded her lips to her throat, so she inhaled it as she floated. In a fixed state of puzzlement, she began to twitch. The light in the living room went out, making me jump. I looked about me, stopping the DVD for a moment. I had to make sure. There flickered numerous odd frames at her twitches. Somewhere, oh my, just unlike anything I'd seen. Most of the images were of the villains, displayed in a realistic fashion that the girls occasionally fought in the series, like Mojo Jojo, him, and Fuzzy Lumpkins, for all I know. Some appeared mangled, deranged, or, shockingly enough, dead. There's just nothing like it. It went silent again, and there was static on the screen until it flicked back to Bubbles, staring at the screen with red eyes. Her colors switched to gray. The soundtrack began again in reverse. She shot through the ceiling. The girls didn't follow her, but stared out at the hole she had made in the ceiling. I'll never forget this. The next shot was of the teacher, their teacher, in the classroom at the desk. She looked towards the door Bubbles had entered as she glared over at her, teeth bare. She threw herself at the screen, the high-pitched scream surprising me again, for a static sounded and it switched to 3 live-action segments. The first one was hard to make out. Several rippling lines ran up the video as it played. The recording was choppy and the audio rather weak. It showed a man in formal dress approaching a person holding the camera. It was handheld and jolted in some places. The entire conversation was in Japanese, and the man held an unnaturally large, stretched-out smile throughout. His eyes contained greed and the indication of loathing directed towards the camera. Judging by the surroundings, it looked like a room with glass windows. I frowned a little, puzzled. It resorted to the second one with static for a second, then returned with clear picture, clear audio of a young girl holding exactly the same DVD I had. The Bubbles picture stared at me as the girl stood up, smiling proudly at the unique specimen in her hands. The same language chirped from her as she stood before the camera, pointing out Bubbles. The background looked like a lush-looking bedroom. It went fuzzy again, loud static. The emotion of it all tore suddenly, and I found myself gripping the material of my chair. Japanese was being spoken fluently, rushed, and in a panicked tone, as the shaking and the movements of the camera stopped in the third and final segment, as it focused on a classroom with Japanese children, wailing and sobbing as they had scrambled into the corner of a room, desperation and horror hanging in the sound and sensation of it all. My heart just pounded like a jackhammer, especially when I heard the bubblering of the cameraman. He was trembling. A small figure was standing at the other end of the room, dressed in a robe of gray, hiding itself from vision. The cameraman called out to somebody, for a splattering of red hit the lens. The man bellowed, expressing grief and further sobbing. The children screamed, and the focus died, as the camera flung itself back and forth along the hall, indicating the man running. The children following behind him with piercing yells. More blood hit the lens before it resorted to static and the cartoon returned to the screen. I realized something from when I'd watched it. The cameraman, the one recording it. A moment he was fixing his recording close to a mirror, where the creature was. It was him. The one who sold me the DVD. I knew from his image on the account. Oh, God. I was just gobsmacked. It hadn't just been an intrusion of random real-life sequences. It was a warning. Silence once more. The camera was reeling out of a crowd of people, staring at Bubbles' lifeless, mangled gray body. Blossom was crouched, staring at her sister's corpse sadly. Buttercup was at Utonium's side, comforting him as he sobbed. Black started to eat at the screen until there was nothing left. It faded into the next shot. A Bubbles marching slowly towards the camera, red eyes and angered. Heavy breathing, as if struggling, flooded the headphones, gradually getting louder and louder as the wall behind her scrolled slowly. Suddenly, I found myself back at the title screen, silent. It was over. Overwhelmed with shock, I couldn't find myself to move. After a minute, I reached for my headphones and removed them from my ears. I collected the DVD from the laptop, placed it back into the case. I had to get rid of it. I couldn't even believe what I had just watched. Walking up to my room after turning off the light, I heard a subtle hiss, like a whisper, directed from across the hall. I got goosebumps. My skin crept and my eyes darted back and forth along the hall. I came to the last stair and found myself staring at a short, black, Powerpuff Girl-like form from the end of the hall. It gave a light giggle, and I rushed into my own room, slamming the door shut. My heart was caught in my throat. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. It knocked on my door, and I almost cried out. Biting my lip, gripping my own skin, I yanked the door to find Zoe. Large bags rested under her eyes as she rubbed her eyes as she croaked. "Daddy, I had a bad dream." Original ending. I got goosebumps. My skin crept and my eyes darted back and forth along the hall. I came to the last stair and found myself staring at a short, black, gruff girl-like form from the end of the hall. It gave a light giggle and I rushed into my own room, slamming the door shut. My heart was caught in my throat. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. It knocked on my door and I almost cried out. Biting my lip, gripping my own skin, I yanked open the door to find a Powerpuff Girl. Its eyes were red as she croaked, "Hello." Then I woke up. I was terrified. "Thank God it was a dream," I said calmly. I go downstairs and look inside the package. There was a plushie of Bubbles. "That trickster," I yelled annoyed. And I lived normally again. So next time, if your son or daughter a fan of Powerpuff Girls, be careful when you are buying. So one question, who is Zoe? Because this parent's child's name is Lily. Who is Zoe? Where did Zoe come from? Are there two children? Why did only Lily matter? What the hell is going on? I like this one, sort of. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still a bit of lackingness to even the new ending. But the original ending was almost jarring, but not in a great way. It was just like, it makes you wonder how much of the events that previous night even happened, all things considered. Simply because woke up, I'm assuming in their bed, they go downstairs to look into the package as if the package had not actually been opened because there's a plushie of Bubbles instead of the DVD. That trickster, I don't know why they're annoyed or what that is implying, that it was just he paid $10 for the DVD and got a $10 plushie and was annoyed. I don't understand what that is, but the plushie doll ending was overused a lot. I know it was used for like the Sonic creepypastas, and so like there's a doll or a plushie trope was used quite a bit probably when this came out. With the updated ending, it doesn't write off the entire previous night's kind of events with watching it and everything, which is nice. Like I said, probably the most terrifying thing is who the fuck is Zoe and where the fuck did she come from? Zoe has replaced Lily. She is the only child now. Probably just a slip up on child's name, sure, but at the same time, where the hell did Zoe come from? I can't get over it, I'm sorry. Aside from that, I think it's still a pretty solid one. I think I would give this one a 5 or 6 even. Simply because, I mean, it's pretty good. I personally feel like this is just a solid creepypasta, despite, some of the typos, grammatical errors, and whatnot. Pretty good. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I just hope you enjoyed this as well. But it appears to be that time again, so I guess it's bye-bye for now. Bye!